Boy, oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, footy's come back in a big way and it's hit us like a bloody freight train for all the wrong reasons at the Collingwood helm. But all in all, I feel like we give the Pies a bit of a mulligan. There are some maybe some deep lying issues within what we saw yesterday, pre-existing issues, chronic issues. So a lot of topical conversations going into the show tonight. This is the Pies Presser. For those who haven't been here before, it's pretty much the news filler on every other day. If there's no Pies Footy show, if there's no Moving the Magnets, if there's no pre-game show, post-game show, well, you're going to get a Pies Presser. And we're going to talk about anything and everything that is happening at Collingwood. We expected to see and hear the sort of fallout in the following 24, 48 hours in the mainstream media world. So hopefully you guys can come over here and I'll give you a bit of respite from the likes of your Kane Corns, your David Kings, and everyone else in between. They're entitled to their own opinions, but we know better because we live and breathe this club, not those blokes, right? So looking forward to that. There's Chris, Mello. Yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right. How are you? There's my beautiful girlfriend calling in from all the way from Pies. She's left me with the dogs, so hope she's enjoying it. Okay. So on the agenda, let's get into it. You can see by the thumbnail, by the title, the first thing I want to nut into is the Jordan De Goey conversation around his injury. They say he's working through the bone bruising. It's taking a little longer to heal. I don't know if that's a cover-up for his hip and groin, so to speak. John Ralph reported yesterday that JDG is almost a certainty to miss round one against Port. And I'm unsure if this is lazy journaling by Ralph, because by all reports, from what the lads have seen at training, Swoop Luke, Andreas, Jen as well, he looks to be has been amidst a pretty heavy conditioning block while also participating in pretty much every session with the full squad. So I'm not too sure which way to lean on that one. But then Fly comes out in the presser and mentions or indicates that De Goey really does have a bit of work to do to get up for the Port Adelaide game. And judging by the comments Fly made last week in that great interview with himself and Damien Barrett, Fly highlighted that last year there are a lot of players who are fit to play but not fit to perform. So if he's going to stick by that philosophy or maybe go against the grain of that and be a little bit more risk averse and ensure that if he's having players tick the boxes to get back to play, it's ticking the boxes to perform at your greatest ability, not can we get you to the starting line and we'll compensate for you in the game. So unfortunately, it doesn't seem like Jordan De Goey is going to make that game against Port. It would have been really handy, and it's probably the perfect time to bring someone like him in just to alleviate some of our problems that we're seeing in that engine room in the midfield, which will tie into the next part of the conversation. So JDG will come back into a midfield that looked defensively slow out of the middle. So I think when De Goey does come back, I know when he comes back, it means he's fit to perform, which means he'll need to be able to play 80% in the midfield to the highest degree, to the highest level. But is there a way we can bring a De Goey in and for the first half of the season, he plays 50-50 mid-forward. And then that sort of opens up some other options we can explore in the guts. And I have two players in my mind that I think that could truly help the synergy and balance in our midfield room. So, three or four main players that were going through the middle yesterday were Pez, Nakos, Pendlebury, and then say, I'm actually not too sure. I mean, there was a lot of players rolling through at 15, 20%. And there were two players. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't see these two players attend a centre bounce in the first three quarters. I'm wondering if they attended the centre bounces in the fourth quarter when the game was a dead rubber. I'm talking about Jack Crisp and Bo McCreary. So looking around the league, you've got Zach Merritt. And I'm talking about players like Finn Callahan with that speed and that ability just to run and carry and break the game open. I think of players around the league like Zach Merritt. I look at, say, Chad Warner, Isaac Heaney, better yet, Jason Horne-Francis and Connor Rosie, who we just so happen to be facing this Saturday. These are the players that I believe will and have give us the most amount of grief this season. So to counteract that, and I'll tie in another stat, guys, to paint the picture a little bit better. So last year, Collingwood were the worst side when it came to our uncontested possession count. So when you think of uncontested possessions, you're probably looking at, firstly, chipping and marking and working your way up the ground. Think Geelong, think Hawthorn sometimes. Think GWS yesterday, they did that. They kicked 10 goals on us from the back half. And then there's also the uncontested possessions when you win that initial contest in the coalface and then you get the hands out and then everything opens up through handball receives. So we'll last. And GWS were a top four side last year. We were minus 30 in uncontested possessions. So we had 200 uncontested possessions. GWS had 230. That stat alone in most games, you'll lose a lot of games. That's just, there's no working around that. You cannot give teams easy disposals with purpose working up the ground. There are caveats and exceptions to the rule where there are some games where they're sort of piss fighting around with the ball. Think Fremantle sometimes. But outside of that, you usually play teams, good teams, who are able to dominate the uncontested possession realm. They obliterate you. So the good thing was, and the good thing is, that after that like 4 or 5 game stretch last year where we got completely dominated in the uncontested battle, you're looking at the Geelong, Gold Coast, Essendon, Hawthorn games. After that, leading to our final 5 games of 2024, we were only a -5 in differential for that statistical category. So I bring that up because in that horrid stretch before those last 5 games last year, I was thinking to myself, how on earth can we turn this around? We look so slow. We can't cover the ground defensively. What are we going to do? And then I don't know what happened. Maybe, guys, you help me in the comment section. What happened in those last 5 games? What changed? Because we looked like for 5 games that year, late in that season, we looked deplorable. And then for the final 5 games of that year, we looked like a top 4 side. We beat Brisbane. We should have beaten Sydney. We beat Richmond. We beat Carlton. We punished Melbourne. So I have faith, and I'm not pressing the panic button just yet because I know we have that switch. Sometimes it's just it's Melbourne weather with Collingwood. You know, sometimes you got a storm that hovers over you and it just dissipates at any given time. There's no really reason behind it. There's no explanation. You can't justify it. That's sport. Some things just don't make sense. Nothing's linear. If these things made sense and if they were linear, no one would watch this sport. This is the beauty of it. You know, this is making hopefully this is the first chapter in 2025 that really accentuates and intrigues the story for the rest of 2025. Let's catch up to the comments. Let's catch up. Hello there, Manny. Magpies will flourish. Kev, how you going? Woody, how you going, mate? So disappointing after preseason build-up. I know. We'll be back. Houston will make us look good. I just rest him for the Dogs game as well and bring him back after the bye. It seems like that's what it's going to be. There you go, Manny. 55 inside, yeah, 6 goals. It's unlike Collingwood to not be able to convert from our inside 50s. Last year we were really good. The year before we were really good. When I say really good, we'd have a scoring shot one in every 2 inside 50s. We'd have a goal 1 in every 4 inside 50s. So I think that's an anomaly. Yeah, this guy's he's gonna scare me. He's gonna scare me. It'll be a completely different game when the winter hits. Too many. We need to stop all the excuses. Melissa, how you going? We never played good at. Yeah, look, Energy Stadium's a bit of an unusual one. I mean, how often do you play at it? Maybe once a year. It's a very different ground to what we're accustomed to, and you don't, just quietly, you don't win flags at Energy Stadium. You win flags at the MC&G. You know what I mean? I agree. Put Crisp into the midfield. We need speed on the outside. I would also have Houston running off halfback to get the ball on the outside from a center clearance, get the ball in a man's hands. Yeah, well, that's what Josh Dacos and Dan Houston will do. That's the first thing one of those players will do at centre bounce. They will time their overlap into the centre and get a handball from the midfielders. Right. Back to my points. Let's go. Where are you? So, let's talk Beau McCreary. Now, I know it's early to be calling for some magnets to be moved, but we've seen this story before, haven't we? With the midfield looking slow at times last year. And I know Beau hasn't done a lot of training in the midfield throughout this preseason, but I just think we have to give someone like Beau more time in the guts. He had 15% midfield time yesterday. Once again, guys, in the comment section, let me know. Was it in the fourth quarter where he played midfield? Because I didn't see him at any point in the first 3 quarters at a centre bounce. 15% apparently he was in them. So he was actually tried last season as a midfielder, very early in the season. I think it was like around the time we versed Carlton for the first game against Carlton. But he had a concussion and then he had calf issues. And then, do you really want a player who's just coming back from a soft tissue injury to be playing midfield, who is typically accustomed to the loads of a forward player? So, and this ties in with the conversation before. With if JDG spends more time as a forward, right? This is what I'm thinking, right? This is what's going on in his head. This is all I've been thinking about today. Just, this type of result really demands a internal dialogue, This is what we do. So if JDG spends more time as a forward, like a 50-50 split, we can play Bobby Hill higher up the ground, and JDG will effectively take Beau's spot. And then you got to ask, well, if you put DeGoey, Membry, McStay, Myercheck in the same forward line with Bobby Hill and Jamie Elliott, you're probably 1 too tall, because JDG can mark overhead and he's what, 6'1", 6'2", I think. So you probably have to ask yourself if you can have those 3 talls in the same team if DeGoey plays forward. But I think DeGoey going into the forward line gives license for Beau to increase his midfield time. And I'd like to see at some point where we get a healthy dosage of Beau in the midfield. 30-40% maybe is something I'd like to see, and just stick with it. Like, I think if there's something we need to risk, it's throwing Beau into the midfield mix now. Right now. Talking about Jack Crisp. Do you guys remember last year when we had all these injuries, who was the linchpin in the guts throughout that period of war of attrition at Collingwood? It was Jack Crisp. And that stretch was arguably our best stretch. We went, all our numbers were trending in the right direction. We were on the precipice of top 4. And then as the players came back, Scott Pendlebury, a few other players that slipped my mind right now, but Jack Crisp's time in the midfield begun to decrease. I'd like to ask Crispy, mate, like, what do you reckon? You reckon you're better off utilising the middle? Because I think he is. He was picking up coaches' votes. He was kicking goals. He looked like a man on a mission. And I actually thought, I haven't watched the game back. I probably need to, just because of how annoying the game was. You sort of you're seeing the game through red. You're not like level-headed and not being rational and objective. But I think I think Chris was respectable yesterday, wasn't he, guys? Once again, let me know in the comments. How was Jack Crisp? What did you make of his performance? But I think Jack Crisp is better utilised as a midfielder in this team. How we do that, I don't know. I'm reluctant to bring Scott Pendlebury into all of this. I'd have to, because one, I have to watch the game back. 2, he played on Finn Callaghan in the stoppages, and I think that's just the wrong matchup, speed-wise anyways. So I don't know if that was Pendles putting his hand up and saying, I want to play on Finn, or if that was Matthew Boyd's idea. So I want to give that a moment. There's some games where Pendles looks slow, but then there's some games where Pendles looks like he could play for another 10 years. So I just sort of want to keep him out of the conversation for now. So the other thought that crosses my mind, I'll get back to the comments first. Give me a moment. Sorry, guys. Let's have a look at the comments. All right. Giants played for their lives after capitulation last season. We were sucker punched that game at the MSG in Winton. It's a different story. You need to use brains instead of hanging on to false hopes. We only have one fast A-grade mid, and if you tag Nick, we'll struggle to win. So this is a good point that I actually want to talk about milkshakes. Milkshakes, right. Nick Dacos in the first half was very impressive, guys. He had 18 touches. He was good from what I saw. And then for the entirety of the second half, he could not move. Literally could not move. So these raps on Toby Bedford doing a job on Nick yesterday, I don't think it's warranted. Do people forget, like, could you not see Nick was walking like he had a stick up his backside? He couldn't move. I don't think it was Toby Bedford's work that they didn't cull him. He culled himself. He was cooked. He was cooked. Ball in the midfield. McCreary plays his best when it's a manic game style. It certainly wasn't manic yesterday, was it? We need Dacod to go forward to create scores. We're missing Geordie, Nick connection in the middle big time. He's too much of an outside player. I think we need inside out. Josh Dacos has never been a hardball winner. Need some sort of hardball ability. Take Pendles out of the centre, put him down towards the back, and have Bo in the middle. Yeah, I was thinking that. But if then again, I think, if Josh Dacos looked slow running back yesterday, how would Pendlebury look? Yeah. So see, I actually espresso. That actually ties into my next conversation really well. So that is Jacob Bryan and Will Parker on the cusp of selection. I just don't think they're too far away if we need to rearrange the magnets when DeGoey comes back, if we move Crisp, if we put Bo in the middle, to accommodate Crisp coming into the midfield. it leaves a really important spot to be covered on the wing. Now, could you put Will Hoskin-Elliott there? Yes. Could you put Steele side bottom there? Yes. Could you try Harry Di Mattia? Risky because he's still young. Whereas, Jacob Ryan and Will Parker have shown something. Will Parker's shown something in the AFL. Jacob Ryan has shown something. He got a game last year or 2 years ago. Last year, I think. Maybe 2 years ago. I can't remember. And then Will Parker, yeah. So I think it might be unlikely, but possible. So don't take it as gospel. But once again, these are just thoughts that I'm just like, all right, well, what can we do to make some adjustments? That's what I'm wondering. Like, if Will Parker goes into the back line, Crisp comes into the middle, you've got like a Josh Dacos, right? So I think I messed up my point. So JR and Will Parker, potentially one of them play in the back line. Crisp moves into the middle. That allows Josh Dacos to go back to the wing. Now, I'm not saying revert Dacos back from halfback to the wing because he's been really impressive. It's just more of like a watch this space more than anything. So I think these are good conversations just to bear in mind. And I think I've said this a few times, but we need to keep an eye on like how quickly and what type of moves do the coaches make on the fly. Last year, we made some moves far too late. So I just want to see our coaching team be more proactive when it comes to moving the magnets and selection and game plan adjustments and all this sort of stuff. This is a really big year for Fly and the coaching staff. Really big year for Jordan Rufford, Matthew Boyd, Scooter Selwood. I think this is going to be really telling. Really telling, 100%. Okay. Where else could you put Pendelzen? See, that's a question I just don't want to answer right now because if it's not in the midfield, it might be somewhere else that's not in the AFL. But that's just like, I'm not jumping the gun. I'm just saying, like, if he can't play in the midfield, I don't know if he can play anywhere else. Is what I'm really trying to say. More of a reason to get Matt Rowell. True. Jacos has a defensive game, just not defensive nous. So do you mean like, what does that mean? He has a defensive game, so he tries. Are you saying he has the IQ, but he doesn't have the traits? Or are you saying he has the traits or like the awareness, but not the IQ? Billy was amazing. Stood up when needed it. Need to get Crispy and Elliott in the middle also as they can inject speed. Yeah, they do like sometimes throw Elliott in for like a center bounce in every other quarter. They did that yesterday. Kyne's disgusted. Yeah, missing tackles yesterday was prominent, and it was disappointing off the back of a preseason where we put a concerted focus on tackling craft with Matthew Boyd and Jack Viney's brother, who's like a black belt Brazilian jiu-jitsu martial artist. So once again, this is something we don't want to see become a trend. I'm hoping that, it's just like we just chalk this up and move on. Because, to be able to fully reap the rewards of Josh Dacos off halfback with his offensive weapons, which, mind you, were significantly impeded yesterday. It felt like GWS were always a meter away, less than a meter away when Collingwood picked up the ball anywhere on that fucking oval. I truly believe that. And that's why I also think that's why we were plus 20 in contested possessions. Not because we necessarily won more hard balls. Yeah, sure, we did. We probably did win more hard balls, but we didn't execute after the post contest. but I feel like we probably won more contested possessions because every time we went to pick up that ball from the ground, there was already a GWS player by your side. So, yeah, interesting one. Yeah, you give Chris Benbow more middle. But yeah, just to reap the benefits, we need Josh Dacos to be defensively sound as well. So give it time. So it's a long season. If there's anything we learned last year, it's a bloody long season. Okay. How do you presume De Goey to miss, or are you just looking and making a decision, or is it official? Justin, my man, I spoke about it at the start of the stream if you want to go back, but I'll quickly recap. So John Ralph tweeted yesterday that Jordan De Goey is almost a certainty to not play against Port Adelaide. And then that was substantiated by Fly McRae in the presser. He said he's what do you say? Let me check what note I've got here. He's got a lot of work to do to get up for round one. So when you tie that in, you naturally you're gonna make the point that Jordan De Goey is likely to miss again. So there you go. Hope that helps. MD, how you going? I think Nick Dacos is just he's not taggable. People think Toby Bedford tagged him, or did a good job tagging him. He just couldn't move in the second half. And the beauty is Nick Dacos can play forward, so that's something. He has a really handy trick up in his sleeve: his ability to go forward and have an impact there as well, and off half back, mind you. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, Melissa. I just don't know if there is a position other than a midfield for Pendles to occupy. You know what I mean? Mate, just quickly, how inspiring was Jeremy Howe yesterday? There were some really head in the hole moments for both teams, but Jeremy Howe was unbelievable. Now, without even looking at his stats, I don't care about the stats because he passed my eye test. Just competing, use the ball okay. I think he's so important. I really hope we can keep him going for at least another year after this. Look, I think the other thing was a real stiffing. It was a real stifling day on Sunday. It looked like it was really messed with them. Yeah. All right, we'll get into the next segment. Give me one moment. Yeah, it's just one of those things, Jimbo. Like, you can prepare as much as you want, but unfortunately, at the end of the day, you can't prepare yourself for a 120-minute game in 28-degree heat with humidity, and the anxiety levels are high. Like, all these variables intertwined, you're gonna get this early. It happens every year. I mean, I'm sure this was worse than most, but I mean, even some of the GWS players were cramping at times. I don't think Crocs will come in just yet, Chris. Bobby on a wing, maybe. Just he'd be definitely a liability defensively. Steve, how you going? All right, cool. Let's get on to the next subject. So we are going to talk about the Fly's presser. So one of his quotes was, "We had periods of dominance in the game. However, I can only recall probably 2 periods of dominance, which was the first half of quarter 2, where Myercheck kicked 2 and Jamie Elliott kicked 1. We looked good then. And that was probably off the back of Nick Dacos having a solid second quarter. Let me have a look what we saw in the second quarter. Bear with me. Because there were periods in that second quarter, but then to be honest, GWS answered back anyways with 4 goals unanswered. So Yeah, Nick Dacos, who had 10 touches in that second quarter. Yeah, 10 touches, 3 clearances. So he really drove that, and that's why it just, I guess, proves my point that I don't know if Tommy Bedford stopped him. I think Nick Dacos's body stopped himself. So that was the first period of dominance we had off the back of some really good work by Nick Dacos, Jamie Elliott, Brody Mychek. But then, like I said, GWS bounced back, kicked 4 goals without response. And then the other period of dominance was quarter 3 for like 10, 15 minutes, where we just owned territory. I think it was like 80% territory for the majority of that quarter. They go back the other way. You just knew it was going to happen, didn't you? You knew there was going to be a slingshot, and you just knew at some point they're going to get the ball over the back. They're going to get a couple hand passes, and then little boys like Darcy Jones and Brent Daniels are going to get on their bike, and you're not going to be able to catch them. So for me, those are the only 2 periods of any sort of assertion and dominance for the Pies. Outside, I thought we were well below par. Truthfully, it felt like even if we converted some of those chances during that time of dominance, so I think in that third quarter, we had 7 shots on goal. I think we were like 0-6, 0-7, no goals. Let's say we take 2 or 3 goals from that period of dominance. I still don't think it would have been enough, judging by what we saw unfold for the remainder of that third quarter, for the entirety of that fourth quarter. Now, I know the fourth quarter was largely a dead rubber for the most part, but I just think, yeah, those 2 or 3 goals that we could have gotten back, I don't know if that does enough. But that's a big what if, isn't it? That's a big what if. What we're saying about that. I only really remember the first 15 of the second quarter. Unlucky to not get a goal, had 3 scoring shots. So if he's good to play, good to go, play him as a deep forward with Pendle's third tall. Nah, that's crazy. Pendle's the third tall. You're kidding me. Sorry, Digsby. I can't go with that. We couldn't kick straight to save our lives. Josh is no. John Noble, he's an all-attack. He's a great winger. Even at third quarter, we had dominated, but looked good. Very rushed and not clean. Yeah, I think, Chris, when the game is locked in your forward half for so long, it does become really congested. It's never going to look pretty. When the game is in your forward half for that long, GWS are going to have 18 players in that, basically in that final third of that field. It's never going to look pretty. Yeah. Ed Allen looked good in that first half. The second half, he was a little bit shaky, but I think everyone was shaky in that second half. But he showed some really good signs. So really positive step in the right direction for Ed Allen. Just, I guess now we're just hoping for consistency right now. He was good. I think he had a really good game. When you think, I'll probably say after the bye. Yeah, you see, when you have to hide someone, Digsby, that's a problem. When you have to hide someone in your team. Yeah, Long was good. Long looked promising. Fresh legs. Don't know. Look, here's the thing, right? So that's where I say, like, I'd rather a Jack Crisp or more so like a Bo McCreary to take the time in the midfield that Ned Long gets. Does that make sense? Longy was good. He's got some fucking heart, doesn't he? Definitely wears the badge. So the next thing I want to talk about, Flyers' next quote. They beat us in the air in our forward half. So yeah, we got some feedback from that today. So he's talking about, really, he's pointing out that Sam Taylor just destroyed us every time the ball went in the air. He took 9 intercept marks, which is nearly an AFL record. I think a bunch of players are on 10 intercept marks, including Darcy Moore against Carlton, I think it was. So I'm not too sure what he means by what sort of innuendo. I don't know if it's innuendo, but they got feedback. They got feedback from what they saw out there. What does that mean? Like, what what adjustments are they willing to make after that game with regards to the ball movement? Is his innuendo suggesting that we're going to be more assertive, moving the ball and try to get the ball into the forward 50 as quickly as possible? Because the way it was going in, it played to the strengths of the best defender in the game, Sam Taylor. And don't get me wrong, we've got a really good forward line, we've got some good tools, but let's not kid ourselves. It's not like we have Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay and Ben King just waiting to take a massive contested grab. Like the Mackays and the Curnows, they eat up contested pack marks like they're lollies. What we have is 3 above average forwards, not elite. So let's treat them as such. Tim Membry, above average. Maybe, above average. Brody Myercheck, I can see the argument that, well, Checkers is finally playing the role that he probably should have his entire career, which is like that second/third key tall forward. And then you got McStay, who has he doesn't have superstar potential, but he has some sort of like star potential because of his X factor with his athleticism and his height. So while he has potential to be in the elite category as a forward, he's never been that. Does he have the potential to do so in the next couple of years? Maybe, but let's not treat them like they're these elite players who we can use as bailouts all the time. I think we just got to. The biggest thing with all of that, like going long and going short and trying to move the game quickly, is just finding that balance. That's what I think it comes down to. So that's the feedback. That's the feedback I think Fly was talking about. Dominating play without scoreboard pressure means nothing. I think so too, MD. Yeah, I'm not sure if Steely could keep up with Callahan, though. I don't know. I don't think we played Cox round 1. All right, ladies and gentlemen, just a short and sharp one for the evening. Thank you guys once again for joining us for the live stream. If you want to support the channel, become a member. That's the best way to support the channel. You get access to early release videos, but more or less it's just to keep the channel going and supporting myself and the two fellas behind me. So as always, pleasure having you all here with me, and go Pies.